Hello friends, it's Kayla. This is historically the least watched video of the Lala Miss series, so thank you so much for being a real one and clicking on today's video. Understandably so. I think everybody's waiting for end of year wrap-ups and I'm still doing a quarterly one, but just for the organization and the satisfaction of it all, I love the quarterly wrap-ups. So let's talk about what happened in the last 3 months. I read exactly 70 books. That was by design because I needed to hit an even number. So when I do my final yearly wrap up, all of my graphics can be evenly spaced. I just needed like one more book. And so yesterday I read my final thing. Anyway, in October, this is all lies anyway, but like in October, I read 17 books. In November, I read 23. In December, I read 30. That's not technically true, but that is how my wrap ups are organized because I've been filming 3 different videos since summertime. And so back in wrap-ups of July and August, I said things like, I'm lying to you, this isn't true, but like I read some things you don't know about. But everything is finally done. So we're saying I read 70 books in the last quarter. I posted 27 videos and we're gonna go through them all, my favorite books from each one. 13 of them were sit-down videos, 11 of them were vlogs. 3 of them were book club live shows. And then members also got 13 individual videos the last 3 months. There were 5 custom ones and then 8 live shows, including movie nights and reading sprints, book clubs and stuff like that. So let's run through the videos and everything that I read for them. The most amount of books I read for a video was the Goodreads video. I read 15. And like I always do this video at the end of the year where I read an entire category. This time I read a book from each category. And so this didn't seem like in my head, I read the same amount as normal, but that's not true because technically, I'm trying to read an entire category or like the top 10. And I've already read like half of them before I even get into it. So 15 books was actually more ambitious than I even realized. I should have seen that coming. I think you would say this video was more successful than the other years, not just in amount that I read, but the amount that I enjoyed stuff because I was just picking something I was interested in from each category. Here's everything that I read. My favorites, my 5 stars from the video were How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair, Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang, and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. All ones that were already on my TBR, but I did successfully read them. And then I just want to shout out my stack of 4s because with the exception of 4 books that got a 3, this video just had so many 4s. I think the most amount of books I read for the next video was the one where I was reading things from a 1985 magazine that I found. And I read 7 books. I didn't end up with any 5 stars. Honestly, this book is ruining my life. Like every time I try to put it in a stack, I try to do anything with it, it's just like bent and I need to get rid of it. Oh wait, I lied. There's a stack that's bigger. I read 9 books for a vlog where I read books that were almost selected as literally did book club picks. And I didn't have any 5s, but I did have 2 4.5s. So that's The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile and Green Fuse Burning by Tiffany Morris. I read 5 books for a video that got posted just for members, but I've been talking about it for a while. It was reading romance until I get a 5 star. I didn't get a 5 star, so the vlog was canceled, but the footage was sent over to the besties. My favorite from the video though was People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I also read 5 books for a video where I was reading books blurbed by, was it my favorite authors or authors who blurbed my favorite books? I think authors who blurbed my favorite books. And I, again, didn't end up with a 5 star from this one, but these 2 were very high 4s. So The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, but I think this one stands out the most. The Adventures of Mina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I read 4 books in this vlog. I don't have the 4th one. It was called Spotify Wrapped Chooses My TBR, and I picked some things at random. No 5 stars to be seen. Besides my Goodreads video, I think this quarter was kind of a flop. I read 4 books for a video where I was just reading new releases. This is something that I'm hoping to do more in 2024, if I remember, is when I find myself with a stack of books that I just want to read and can't fit them in a vlog, to just do a casual like week-long vlog where I read things I'm interested in. 1 5 star here that was expected, Mammoth at the Gates by Nevo, but Vampires Bel Norte by Isabel Cañas was a 4.5. I read 4 books in this video where I read books that people recommended if I loved certain movies, and there were no 5 stars to be seen here either, but The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston was a 4.2. 4.25. I read 3 books for a third time's a charm, and I did end up with a 5-star and can officially consider Tananarive Due a favorite, an all-time favorite author. The Reformatory secured her spot with that. Oh, whoops. I also read this is all in the wrong order. Rats. 4 books for a video where I read the books that inspired the Barbie movie or were seen in the Barbie movie. No 5 stars here, but these 2 nonfictions, Man and Horse and Reviving Ophelia, were better than I expected them to be, so they were high 4s. I read 2 books in the video where I was trying out clay. Listened to 2 audiobooks. This one I did a mix for, and it was 5 stars. The Black Guy Dies First by Robin Armeens Coleman, PhD, and Mark H. Harris. And then my final public vlog of the year was reading some horror, thriller, festive reads. Neither of these were a 5. And finally, my tiny stack of books that I didn't read for videos. They're just things that I read. Some things that I read for my book club, some things that I read from my members TBR jar, and then just a couple extra things. My 5-star was Advocating for Palestine in Canada by a whole bunch of people, but these were both 4s. This was the final one that I read just to hit my 270 book. It's not a goal, just like a requirement for cute graphics. Like I said, I read for the aesthetics. Now, what other stats might you care about? Genre. So all in all, I read the most amount of mystery books with 13, followed closely by nonfiction at 12. I read 10 horror. Even though I didn't do the horror category, I managed to read 10 horror, which feels great. 9 general fiction, 9 romance, 9 fantasy, 3 sci-fi, 3 anthologies, 1 historical. And then from my actual TBR, books that I was already interested in, either I own them or I wanted to buy them, there was 44. And then books that were chosen for me, I did specifically for videos that I wouldn't have read outside of them probably, was 26. So I'm reading things that I'm interested in the most of the time. I think this is a good balance, even though, like, can we say it was a good balance if I didn't give out that many fantastic ratings? I don't know. I felt good about the balance in the moment. I ended the year with no 1 stars. Like, not just in this quarter, but the whole year, I didn't give out 1 star a single time. This quarter, I did give out 8 2-stars, 23 3-stars, 29 4-stars, and only 7 5s. 43 of my reads were physical, 21 of them were a mix between physical and audio, and 6 pure audiobooks. I got 21 books off of my physical TBR. I read 70 books, but only 20 of them were already on my TBR shelf at like the beginning of the year. And that never feels great, but it's the number and I'm sharing it. And then I borrowed 20 library books. And those are the stats that I think are the most interesting. Now for my 5 favorites of the quarter. Will you see any of these in my favorite books of the year? Not sure yet. The first one is, of course, the horror novel. Does it match me? Yeah, a little bit. Nice. The Reformatory by Tananarive Due is a really heavy horror novel. It's set in the 1950s, and we're following a young boy who gets punished unfairly, a young Black boy, by being put into a reformatory where they tell his family and him that he's going to continue to get like an education and things are going to be fine and safe for him there, but it's just, you know, he can go there or he can go to prison. What ends up happening is he goes there and he meets everybody else there and they connect in different ways. They struggle, obviously. They're treated horrifically. You meet all of the players and the people who are treating the children horribly, who are advocating for them also, but mostly Robbie, our main character's advocate, is his sister. And we're equally following her in these pages as she is going through life trying to find a way to get him out of the reformatory because she fears something horrific is going to happen to him. So they're both fighting to get out. And also while he's there, he learns that he can communicate with ghosts, and that's how he learns what has happened to children in the past. It's one of those horror books that isn't like jump scare frightening, but the horrors of reality are obviously in it, and then the characters themselves are incredibly frightened because of what they're witnessing, both in reality and supernatural. So it's heavy, it's sad, it's also hope-filled, and it's just everything you kind of expect from Tananarive Due to pull off. She is an incredible author. Another horror made it into my top 5, and that's Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. This I just keep reflecting on, and I read it so quickly that this is one that I'm gonna reread in the final week. I mean, we are in the final week of the year. I have a list of, I think, 3 or 4 things that I'm gonna reread to solidify themselves in the top 10. I think this is gonna be one because I love everything that it did. In the moment when I was reading it, I was definitely comparing it a lot to Rouge because they are so similar, but they do things very differently, and I love how this handled things so much more. So I know that since I read them so close together, I was comparing them a lot, but I need to reread it just to see if it stands on its own. But it's about this young woman who she grows up as like this piano prodigy and gets sent to this school, but her classmates treat her poorly. But then we're also following her years later when she gets this job at a spa, and she shows up for work and she gets the job really easily, and suddenly she's expected to do different things that she wasn't privy to before, and also participate in the medical beauty treatments that she's offering the clients. It has a lot of fantastic commentary, but it also is just so unsettling with what they're talking about and the body horror of it, and how she's getting treated. But then also, like, it's a lot about the relationship she has with various people and coworkers, and that she doesn't fully recognize is as harmful as it is. So 2 horror novels made it into my top 5, and then also 2 nonfictions. So How to Say Babylon by Sophia Sinclair is this beautifully written memoir of this woman who's reflecting on her childhood growing up in Jamaica with a Rastafarian father who, as she gets older, becomes more and more controlling of her life and her choices and what she's allowed to say and what she's allowed to do and what she's allowed to wear. We also see what the rest of her family is dealing with, how they get through everything, and how Sophia finds her way out, finds her own passion, and has opportunities with her beautiful writing and poetry. I was expecting to learn a lot from this, which I did, about the area, about the religion, but also I was caught off guard with how just stunning the prose itself was for being a debut, for being a memoir. And then this one was a completely different experience because it's not about the writing itself. It's just a lot of research and information. It's called Advocating for Palestine in Canada, Histories, Movements, Action, edited by Emily Reagan Wills, Jeremy Wilderman, Michael Buchart, and Nadia Abuzara. And this has so many contributions from so many people. Like, every single essay or piece has a huge amount of notes and references at the end where they pull all this information from. And it was just informative, not so much just about the situation in Palestine and what has happened throughout history, but it is about Canadians' relationship with Palestine and all of the like branches and just situations in the government and outside of it that have advocated for Palestine, what they're doing, how they have been through years and years, following many different situations and outside conflicts and internal conflicts even within the different like organizations, where this group of individuals has seen us come from and where they imagine us in the future, and how complex all of these different relationships are, and how different people get into power positions and push other people and other like coalitions, labor unions, and presses like out because they don't agree with all of the conversations going on in the support. It was obviously dense to read, but extremely well organized. I learned a lot, and it was exactly what I had hoped it would be. And then lastly, my favorite of the quarter is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I struggled, this is something that happens to me so often, mostly with fantasy, my like 5-star fantasy, is I struggle through the first third of it, and then once I'm in it, I fall completely in love with it and it becomes an all-time favorite. This happened to me with Daughter of the Moon Goddess, with Immortal Longings. It's like I want my hand to be held a little bit more when I'm getting introduced to all of this fantastical stuff. But then once I do grasp it, I respect that it did drop me into all of the information and just let me be a part of it rather than just like constant info dump. So this is a story of a girl named Emily Wilde, and she is a scholar. She's creating an encyclopedia of fairies, and she has this rival academic named Wendell, and they go on this journey together through the book where they're building the encyclopedia. They're working towards getting to speak at this like big conference. Emily has a lot of questions about Wendell, is like concerned about who he actually is, doesn't know if his research is even authentic, and he is just like kind of following her around, clearly enamored by Emily, but also aggravated by her at the same time, and helps her out in a lot of situations. She doesn't get along with a lot of the townsfolk who she wants to learn the fairy lore from, but he is so charming and like gets into their good graces immediately. And so they create this connection that neither of them, I think, really expect. Emily ends up in a lot of dangerous situations in the name of learning and doing this research. And I just loved everything about this. Their back and forth is incredible. I love both of these characters. I loved learning about the fairies. Like, me loving a fairy book is wild, but I'm very happy to be here. And those are my 5 favorites of the quarter. So let me know if you have read anything I talked about in this video. If you plan on picking up any of my favorites, I don't know. Definitely for my Canadian audience, if you want to have a better understanding of this situation, highly recommend. If you love light fantasy, highly recommend. If you love a memoir, this is the one. And for my horror girlies, check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again, what, tomorrow? What am I supposed to post tomorrow? Oh no, just kidding, I get a day off. And then I have to tell you my favorite books. Good thing I'm filming this a little bit ahead of time, so I actually have a couple days to reread my favorite books to solidify everything. But anyway, I will see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.